Hello and welcome to the Lebenspraxis Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of things concerning the Lebenspraxis, which are things like physical being, mentally being, productivity, laziness, doing nothing, connecting with other people, and whatever comes to our mind here, because we are looking at life in a holistic way. Today, I want to talk about a topic that I would call have your tools ready. And the idea is that you have your actual work or your actual things that you want to do doesn't necessarily need to be only restricted to your work, but you have your things that you are actually doing. And it makes sense to have the things that support this doing ready. So when you're a writer, you have your pen and your paper ready. When you're a carpenter, you have your saw sharp and at a place where you can easily grab it and find it. When you make videos, your camera and your microphone needs to be prepared, which means there needs to be enough energy, like enough battery in these things, enough storage space. It needs to be also easy to grab, and maybe already set up and so on. When you repair bicycles, when this is your job, you want to have spare parts ready and your tools in stock. I have already talked about orderliness in this podcast a few times, and anyway, I talk about it regularly. And for me, orderliness is a tool. I personally don't have much of a neurotic need to be overly orderly. I also like it when things are clean and when everything is neatly stored away. But I also, on the other hand, do not crumble if things are not like this, as long as it's my own mess. Yeah, if the kitchen is not completely clean for some time, I can still do my things. Like, it doesn't concern my mind too much. So I'm really not neurotic about orderliness, but I understood that to be orderly allows me to do the stuff that I want to do, to spend more time directly on that. And one example is that I'm recording this podcast now here, and my recording equipment is already set up in the proper way. Like, there's nothing that I need to do besides switching the recorder on. That takes me 1 second, and then pressing record. So everything is set up properly. And that sounds banal, like many things that I say are a bit banal, but is this actually a word in English? I just use it. It means, I'm not sure if it's a word in English, banal, we say in German. It means like it's nothing to really talk about. And I feel I often say things that are like this, but actually then it turns out these are the very powerful things to talk about, this very simple things. So, okay, coming back to the topic. So this sounds banal, but actually, when this is done properly, it can make a huge difference. I felt it a lot in making videos. I had the problem that I didn't have a permanent setup for making videos, but I was always searching then for a place where I could film something if I had an idea. And I realized that is really taking a toll on my, let's say, production output, because often the case would be that I struggle to find the place or a place that I liked to film it, or I felt like, now I don't, like, I know where the camera is, but the camera is there, then I need to bring it, then I need to make sure everything, like there's the SD card in, there is the it has enough energy and all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And this is like already like 10 minutes that it can take to set everything up and to check everything properly and to check the picture and that it's sharp and that the audio is taken properly and so on and so forth. And then maybe the video that I wanted to film is only 2 minutes. Yeah. So the, how do you say? Yeah, the Verhältnis, the relation between the two didn't fit. And that was regularly that something like this happened to me. So what I then just did is I created a permanent setup that I have, which you have seen also in the last podcast, and which you will see regularly also in other videos. Like, it's very simple. I'm just in this room and I have the camera set up. It's just there. And I'm fortunate enough to have two cameras. Why do I have two cameras? Because when we start to film the follow-alongs, we realize, okay, it would be so great to have another angle. Then we try to have as the second camera an iPhone, but the quality is so different that it just looked terrible. And because I have a bit of a sense of quality, I felt like, okay, I cannot publish something like this. I think maybe we published some first follow-alongs with that. I'm not sure anymore. Okay, but then I just decided, okay, we need a second proper camera for this, so they are of equal quality. And actually now it suits me a lot because I have the camera that I use very regular, or my main camera that I use very regular for the morning routines. So that is ready for the morning routines. And then I have the second camera with which I film here in this room, things like the follow-alongs or short other videos, or just me talking videos, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And that's obviously a money investment, but eventually it will benefit me, because now I just switch on the camera. It is on permanent energy. I never need to load any batteries. I have a big SD card in there, and the cable goes directly into my computer. Yeah, I don't need to take anything in and out of the camera. I just plug it in. I just switch it on. I just press play. And if I would now every day need to take this camera, need to take it to the place where I film the morning routine and then put it back, and that would just end up me being annoyed with that, and probably, as I said, taking a toll on my production output. So I rather pay more for some redundancy in my equipment, so I have something double if it's financially possible. Not always it is, obviously. But here the case was anyway that I had it. I needed it for the follow-alongs that we did, and we use it for other movement videos that we create. And since that is more an irregular thing, like I'm not filming all the time follow-alongs, I have my cameras in the daily use. In a sense, both are almost used daily or several times a week, let's say. And there they are just set up, ready, and everything is good. So having things ready to use, that can make a huge difference. And maybe it inspires you to also think about, where do you have exactly this problem that your productivity or what you want to do is actually sort of stalled or a bit sabotaged by the equipment that you need to use for it. Yeah, one basic example could be you want to go with your bike more regularly, but your bike is in the cellar somewhere in the back. There are 20 things in front of that, and every time you want to get your bike out, it's a huge work. So then obviously that creates a resistance against biking. So you want to have your bike basically ready there. You just need to jump on and go with it. Obviously that's not always possible to do it like this, but you understand the point. And also you want the bike to be properly maintained, and not every time you go to the bike, then you first need to put some air into the tires. That should be done before. Like when I use my cameras, the energy needs to be there needs to be enough energy in the batteries, enough storage on the SD cards, and so on. When I go out, for example, I have this pack, like this hip hip bag. Everything, my most important things are in there. So either I just take this and throw it over the shoulder, or I put it in my backpack. But I always have this ready. And I never search for my keys or anything like this. Yeah, okay, it's ready, boom, just grab it and go out. And into this category of orderliness plays also things like the well-maintained calendar, something I talked about in the first episode, also a proper to-do system, a note and reference system, so that you know where everything is, that you know what you need to do, that you know when happens what, so that is not filling your brain, but then I can use my cognition for the things that I want to do, that when I need a certain book, I can just look in my reference system where it is, like if the case is that it's not directly visible there in the bookshelf, which is the case for me. I've stored many books away in boxes because I wanted to give my kids more space in our apartment and not clutter it all with my hundreds of books. So for me this is all an aid to help me do the actual things that I want to do, because what I want to do is not setting up cameras or switching computers on and off. So in that sense, it makes sense to have your workflows, and I would say to automate some of the robotic work that is happening to free energy for what you are actually doing. So on the computer, what I use, for example, is automation tools, abbreviation tools. Yeah, there's certain things that I put into a program that then when I type a certain abbreviation, then a certain text comes and so on. And I have these automation tools that help me to do the things that I do regularly, which is all the same, and which a computer easily can do and a robot can do. And it's basically just that I do it because the automation possibilities is not so good. I'm actually really quite dissatisfied by the automation abilities that we nowadays have at computers. Isn't it weird that we have this basically supercomputers, if you are thinking about 20 years back, that we now all have at home, and actually also in our smartphone, that all have this neural AI blah 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 capabilities, but actually we are still doing so many things manually on there and always repeating the same things. Compare this to Star Trek, where they just talk with their computers and the computer understands and does it. I mean, we also have this stuff that we can now talk with computers, but it slowly gets better, but it's still far from really working properly. And especially if it's more complex things, it doesn't really work, and you need to know like what is the actual commands you need to give the computer, like how do you speak with the computer, because yes, voice, like language and spoken language is so difficult to understand for computers still, like the meaning of what we want to transport, that obviously that takes a while. But for me, I feel it's a weird situation. Like there's this huge ability of the computers, and at the same time, you still seem to often be part of the computer in a sense of you do this robotic work of clicking and trying to figure out where you need to click and repeating the same stuff. So I'm trying to automate what I can automate with different tools. Notable here is the Mac tool Keyboard Maestro, which I have written about a few tools that I use regularly in an article that can be found on my website. I think it's called the 6 apps that I use regularly or something like this. I can put it in the show notes. And automation can mean automation that tools are like that the robotics are doing the work or the computer is doing the work. But automation can also mean that you have standards for certain things that then again free your mind for the things that you are actually doing. For example, that you always wear white shirts or something like this, yeah? Or you have this one pair of shoes that you wear, blah, blah, blah. Things where you don't need to make decisions. And this is a big thing, to make decisions. And where do you want to make decisions? There's something to explore and to look for. And the thing is that we are making so many decisions daily, yeah? And it starts with what we wear, what we eat, when, where we go, how do we go there, and so on and so forth. We need to make so many decisions. And then sometimes the brain is so drained already when it comes to the things that we, that we are, let's say, when we go to sleep, that we are thinking about that we have done, because then it's less about what you have worn the day, but maybe the book that you wanted to read or the person that you talked with. This is what you actually want to give attention to, or the script that you wrote, or the furniture that you worked on today. And here what also comes up in my mind is the things of separating places. Something you remember me talking about also in the episode about loneliness, about the 3 different places, like your work, your home, and your free time meeting places. And this can be all merged in one place, that you work from home, and this is also where you do your hobbies or meet your friends, and obviously where you live and have your family. And I feel that often that doesn't work so well for many people. Like, I'm very skeptical about home office, especially like when home office means that people take their laptop and sit at the kitchen table. I don't think that works very well, because then you have in front of you the kitchen, and that the kitchen needs to be clean, and you have the fridge there, and you see the fridge, and then it makes you think about food and so on. And then maybe you have a family, like you have your family also being there around, like in the high times of the pandemic, where children were at home, workers were at home, like computer workers, everyone was at home. What a crazy environment to try to work. Yeah, you have 7-year-old at home and a 5-year-old, let's say, as an example, and in the same apartment, that where you maybe have a living room, and then you have one children room and one bedroom or something like this, but all very close together in the kitchen. You try to find a space where you can work on the computer while your kids are there, your partner is there, also doing stuff. And how on earth is this supposed to work properly, And the same is with things like working out, doing movement. I also think that is nice to be able to do this at home, but at the same time to have an outside place where you do this sort of stuff, whatever it is, yeah. If it's working out, if it's meditation, but to have a place where this is happening, that can be very powerful. This is why gyms are so powerful, yeah. If you are doing this type of work that we are doing movement-wise, you don't actually need much equipment. Like, I don't feel I need any equipment that I cannot have at home. Yeah, the biggest thing that I would use is a barbell, but I also don't feel there needs to be regular use of this. I basically use some weights, but often that's in the size of a kettlebell, so not something very big, and then some elastic bands, some gymnastic rings, and tennis balls, and besides that, my own body. That's almost it. Like at every piece of equipment that I use, not very big, so this can be easily all stored at home and used at home. But it's still very powerful to go to a different place, and it doesn't need to be a gym. Can be also a park where you're just used to train there or meet there with other people to train, to really get your head out of the normal being at home mode. And what proves true for many people is when they do home office, it's better for them to actually go somewhere that might be outside, in a park, or just outside in the garden if they have a garden, or into the cellar. If people have a house and they have a cellar, okay, they have a certain room that is really separated from the rest of the apartment. And I have this situation as well, that I don't work in the apartment that I live. I work in a different room that doesn't belong to our apartment, that I could take to have my office there. And like this, I'm basically working from home, but it's not my home. Yeah. Other solutions that people use can be that they go into the car, if they have a car, to sit in there. From the ergonomics, all like far from optimal, like to carry your laptop around and work just on your laptop. But that's a different topic, like the ergonomics of how to work properly on the computer. But another thing is to have this a bit more separated and not sit at the kitchen table or in the bedroom, or on the couch when you do your computer work, but to have that separated. But this, you need to see how well can you do what. I realized for me it's very helpful to do my computer work at a different place, sort of different place, and also my movement work I can do at home, but I like to do it at other places as well, where the focus comes much more easily, let's say. Okay, let's now also look at things a bit from another side. So I talked a lot about things like optimization and so on, and they also often come with a bit of a sour taste, that people say, yes, blah, 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 this is very like 21st, 20th century stuff, like to optimize and so on and so forth. I'm working for myself and doing the things that I want to do. I'm never optimizing to, please my boss or anything like this. So that is purely the way that I approach it, to live the life that I want to live, where, as I said, I don't want to spend my time setting up my camera, but actually filming something with the camera, or where I want to ride the bike instead of every time I'm want to do something with the bike, I have to first figure out how I get it ready so I can bike. But at the same time, chaos is also something that I, from a creativity standpoint, highly value. So for me to have this orderliness is also a way to embrace the chaos in the things where I want to embrace the chaos. And that can be things like having time to just stroll through the woods, or doing nothing, or playing around with things. But then there are the moments where I don't want to have that chaotic scenario where, okay, I have a thought, or I want to film something, I have no idea where my camera is, blah, 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 blah. That for me would be a disturbing chaos. But at the same time, my goal is not to have everything on automatic, because my work is very creative. On the one hand, because I create things, but also on the other hand, because I work with people and we look at certain problems and certain things that we want to do and solve and so on. That's always creative work. That's always cognitive thinking work. How do we find a solution? What would be good for the person? What are your ideas? There's a lot of listening, a lot of talking, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of human warmth in there in my work that is very important for me. And at the same time, the question is, where do I put this human warmth exactly? I used to have, like several years ago, I used to have on the website just written my my dates that I teach workshops, and then you needed to write me an email if you want to participate. Then I would like figure it out with you, like send you an invoice, blah, 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 all this stuff. And at some point I changed that. First I had this form that you filled out, like where you already put your details. So I could basically directly send you an invoice without an email in between. Then I changed it and integrated this Shopify stuff where you can buy directly the ticket to the workshop, or you can buy directly an online program, which took a lot of the interaction at this part out of the process. And I know that some people really like that. They like that, okay, I can just buy it and that's it. There's not so much back and forth. It goes directly to the thing. But I know that other people really like this, let's say, human interaction part of, okay, first you need to write an email. It's not such an automatic internet thing and so on. And I can understand that, and that's nice. But then I see my actual work is then to do something with people, like to work on things with people and to share with them ideas and to listen to them, and not to write emails about invoices and figuring out payments and blah, 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 this stuff. Yeah, so it takes some of the human interaction out of there, but it allows more. It's not that the interaction is less in the sense, I would say. It just puts it where I see it, where it makes more sense to have it, because it also just in a sense is robotic work, like writing invoices and so on. This is all robotic work, I feel, that can be easily done by computers if you just feed them with a little bit of basic information. And to automate there as much as possible, I think that's a benefit in the end, although obviously some human connection, interaction is taken out from that point. But as I said, I see the actual human interaction somewhere else. So I try to automate more things on that side. This is what I did in the last years, and never take away from the human interaction in the actual work. Another thing I want to mention as a caution is the idea of sub-optimisation, term that Sascha Fast explained to me, and Sascha and me in our German podcast, we also have an episode about sub-optimisation. And sub-optimisation is when you optimize a part and your optimizing efforts for this become so strong that actually the whole is suffering from it. Let's say you are trying to optimize your nutrition and you're getting so much into optimizing your nutrition that you don't have time for your friends anymore, basically. So if you look at the totality of the things, that won't be a good idea. Optimization needs always to be seen in the bigger context of our life. And does that really help our whole life, or are we just getting caught into optimizing something? Like figuring out the exact right amount of our magnesium intake or something like this, when there are other things that are much weaker links to look at. And with such productivity ideas, it's relatively easy to fall into the trap of sub-optimization. So it's good to find your setup that works, way of operation that works, and then go into doing, and here and there optimize and improve things and see, okay, here I do something that I really don't want to do. Is there a way to get rid of this? Or here's a way that I don't do well and I feel it takes away from what I want to actually do. Can I do something about it? But then to find easy and effective solutions for that. All right, as always, I'm very interested in hearing what you think. So this podcast lives from your comments also. Let me know if anything was unclear and have a good day. Ciao.